So last year we did Mobilise for the TAs and we found it really successful. So this year we've decided to continue that, but also we had an Ofsted inspection that highlighted marking as an area of improvement. So we chose to do the marking and feedback Mobilise choice as well. We've looked at a series of different research articles with different recommendations about things that have worked and things that haven't worked, all to do with feedback and marking and peer assessment as well. The teachers were spending a long time marking the books. When we looked at the work in the books, some key areas were being missed. So although the teachers were marking, they were not picking up certain things that would have been easy fixes to make sure that the children made good progress. We had verbal feedback as part of our marking policy, but we decided to put a greater emphasis on that. So that's during the lesson, the adults go around and they give live feedback during their lesson, and we note in the book VF when we've given a child feedback, and that's all we write down, but the child has that then acts upon that, so we can see the progress from that verbal feedback in their books. We've also put in place pupil consultations, which involves the teacher and one pupil at a time, so it's a one-to-one conversation, and this kind of gives delayed feedback rather than live feedback. So we'll look back at a piece of work maybe done the week before and look at what went well in the work and what they need to do to improve, and it's a two-way conversation between the teacher and the pupil. So after a lesson, instead of marking the books, the teacher now has time to look through every child's book and assess where they are and what they need for the next lesson. Instead of taking a long time to write in the books, they now can just sort the books, so into piles of who's understood it, who hasn't, who needs reteaching, or who needs just a little bit of editing perhaps. Then the next lesson, the teacher can either give whole class feedback if there's a big issue with a lot of children, or pull off a group and give them group feedback, or speak to individuals. So we had in place last year peer marking, we called it peer marking, and we've changed the emphasis from marking to feedback, so it's now peer feedback. Now the children in pairs work together on one book, and the child whose book it is, they're in charge of the editing, and the other child is there to give advice, to give feedback.
When it was in my book, I didn't used to read the green pen in my book. I used to just ignore it because I got confused a lot.
The teacher couldn't put everything down because it would take too much room up.
If she'd written something and we didn't get it, we couldn't just ask, but if we're having a conversation, then we can just ask her.
It's had a positive impact on progress. The children are making at least as much progress as they were with the marking. A lot of children have made accelerated progress.
Well, it makes an impact on my work, so it makes it a lot better because I understand what the teacher means.
Now I get taught to, it's a lot easier, and I actually do the stuff in my book.
As a teacher, there's a lot more time spent looking at what the children need to know, rather than writing comments for somebody else's benefit that the children may or may not understand. When we started out, we picked about 6 children per class to trial it, to see if the verbal feedback and the pupil conferences worked, and we had the same sort of impact as marking or better, and then we gradually rolled it out so that every class, the whole class, this is how we are feeding back to the children. We're hoping that this will continue next year, and we're going to be adapting the marking policy to reflect the changes.